Have you ever reached a point where your life still looks fine from the outside, but inside it just doesn't add up anymore and nothing quite fits? This reflection is about that experience. It's not a crisis, it's not burnout, and it's not that something is obviously broken. It's what happens when the structures you've been living in, work, routine, responsibility, identity, they're all still there, but they no longer explain how you feel. You're getting on with things, you're meeting expectations, you're doing what's required, but the inner logic that quietly held all of these things together has quietly stopped making sense. For me, it showed up in small ways. I'd finish work, I'd get home, and I'd feel oddly flat. I'd look back at my day and there was nothing wrong with it. There'd been the new normal work conversations, the normal interactions. Everything seemed to have gone off as normal. But there was something that was nagging at me, and I just couldn't quite put my finger on it, and I couldn't quite find the verbal language to describe it, but I could definitely feel it. I certainly wasn't unhappy. I just felt unsatisfied, like the day hadn't quite added up. There's a stage in life that many people recognise, and as I've just said, we don't quite have the language to describe it. On the surface, things look fine. Nothing dramatic has happened, yet something feels out of place. Life doesn't feel wrong exactly, but you just feel it's misaligned. And this matters. So I want to say it clearly. That feeling is rarely telling you that something is completely broken. More often it's a sign that things have changed and you're in between stages, and you're in between ways of living. And as I've said before, not in a dramatic way, not as a breakdown. And it's one of these situations you find yourself in where the old reference points don't make sense. And your new ones, the ones that are going to anchor you in your future, well, they haven't shown up yet. This tends to show up after change. After work changes, maybe it changes shape or loosens its grip. After you stop chasing certain things. And maybe after your identity shifts a little. What's uncomfortable is that something hasn't gone wrong. It's that the old answers no longer fit and the new ones haven't arrived. Most of our lives are shaped by clear structures. Childhood, education, work. Each one of these structures gives us expectations, a sense of progress even. They tell us where we stand without us really having to give too much thought to it. So when one of those structures changes, even a little, it can feel quite disorienting. Not panic, just a little bit of unease, because the answers we once relied on no longer land, and the next set hasn't arrived yet. Now this is the point when people often rush. They rush to label that feeling. They rush to fill the gap. They rush to move on. Maybe a new role, a new project, a new plan even. Not because those things are wrong, but because uncertainty, as we all know, is very uncomfortable, especially in the third age of life. Doing something often feels a lot safer than sitting with that uneasy, uncomfortable feeling of not knowing. So here's what I've noticed. When life feels like this, it's rarely asking to be fixed straight away. It's asking to be understood. This in-between phase isn't an empty one, but it is genuinely unfamiliar. And unfamiliar, for a lot of us, can often feel like failure if you don't recognise it for what it actually is. Often, this is a period of recalibration. Your judgment starts to change. Your tolerance shifts. Certain demands feel heavier than they used to. You may notice that you're less willing to rush, less interested in proving yourself, and a lot more careful about where your energy goes. And I don't expect that this is because you've lost your drive, but because you've probably gained a new perspective. The difficulty is that this phase, like our children, doesn't come with an instruction book. There's no timeline, there's no clear markers, and there's no applause. Just this sense that the old way doesn't work anymore, and the next one, the new way, hasn't taken shape yet. That can make you doubt yourself. Questions will percolate. Am I missing something? Am I stuck? Or am I drifting? And often the answer is no, you're not lost, you're not stuck, you're not drifting. You're just in this new phase, this in-between stage. And perhaps you're going to call yourself in between. In between versions of yourself, between ways of living, between ways that once made sense. This isn't failure. The risk isn't that life feels off for a while. I think the risk is pretending that it doesn't, or rushing to silence that feeling before it can inform you of something possibly useful. And because this is the point where judgment will start to matter more than just pure ambition. Not what looks impressive, but what feels livable. Not what you could do, but what you're willing to live with. What feels like you. And that leads to a different kind of decision making. So if your life feels misaligned right now, the best advice is to try not to panic. Stay with that feeling. Notice what's changing underneath. And be honest about what no longer fits. That quiet honesty often shapes the next chapter before any plan arrives.